It never seems to fail. No matter what precautions you take, other people just mess you up. So the drain plug for the radiator is this type where it's stripped. And then also it's the type that doesn't come out of the radiator, so it just leaves a mess when coming out. And I had to use the towel, and there's Chopstick. He's like the eclipse, blocking everything. Chopstick, you're gross, dude. Been playing in the mud all day, huh? Anyway, so I had to drain the coolant to 1 to get to that freeze plug whenever I get those in the mail, but 2, in order to get all this ugliness off of the hoses, I need to disconnect them. If you look at the rest of the engine, it looks so much better already, just because this hose, this one, that one, they're all the steel braided garbage is gone. It just looks really good. Check out these ugly things. So these are like Chinese finger trap puppet things. You pull on them and they tighten up, so you have to grab it from the end and pull all the way up. Let me show you some other fun bubbiness I found. So here's the fuel line. It has, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 hose clamps on them, and a little hose clamp cover, and it just wriggles around and just jingles around like that. Why, I don't know. Other thing I found out is that the genius that put the heater hoses on it and put one that was 3/4 and one that was 5/8. They're supposed to be both 5/8, I'm pretty sure. So I'm either going to have to find a bigger outlet or change the whole hose for one of the heater core lines. But we'll get to that when we get to that. I'm just excited to pull all this stuff off. To me, this is like, all right, free. I get free hose clamps. Next is going to be the lower hose, which is probably the ugliest of them all. And then we tackle that freeze plug. I know you can't see it now. The plan will be to remove the this AC bracket, get the AC compressor out of the way. And then from there, the lower hose, and then from there, we should have a straight shot at that freeze plug. But it is nasty. With all the water hoses off, and with all the AC brackets out of the way, you can see that's the freeze plug that's leaking. I don't know how you replace a fuel pump and you don't notice that. But luckily, it's not the water pump, and it's not the block or anything like that. It's definitely the freeze plug. You can see pretty much where the water comes out. I think I'm going to have to take the water pump off, though, in order to get pretty good access to it. I mean, you have to hit it in with a socket, and this neck is kind of out of the way. But that gives me a good opportunity to put on a new water pump. I mean, they're really not that expensive. Good thing is, though, the belts are both Gates belts, and they're in really good shape, so I won't have to replace those at all. Alright, this is totally worth showing. I hope you can see it. You can see this thing flex. I can see the hole right there, right where my screwdriver is a hole. It's gonna let coolant out forever. Surprised I haven't overheated this engine in the past. Yeah, it's pretty soft. But yeah, they deteriorate from the inside out, so it's like this one's free flowing, and it's below everything. So if this leaked all your coolant out, your water pump wouldn't work. It'd just be bad news bears all day. There's the hole. So and that's how I'm gonna get it out. Look at all this grossness. It's been leaking slowly for a long time. I think I just enabled it to leak a little bit faster. But we'll dump all this crap down in there. Clean this all up. You know, it's funny, the underside of the motor is completely covered in coolant, just from it blowing around and stuff. But that's what happens when you let these things sit. I finally got the leaky freeze plug out. Here it is. So you can see from the back it's decently corroded. This bottom part where it was more corroded is worse. I had to use a Dremel tool to cut it. And I cut a tiny bit into the hole where it goes. You can kind of see the line in there. But I'm hoping the RTV that I use will be enough to seal it up. That's the way I put in freeze plugs. Big socket like this. Line the outside with RTV, make it a little lubricant, and then just tap it in. So that's what we're going to do to get that in. I'm pretty sure I'll be okay. It's not very deep. I can barely even catch it with my fingernail, so fingers crossed, guys. After a lot of hammering, I finally got the new freeze plug in. It's not as pretty as I would like, but there it is. See if I can get a little better view. There you go. I'm pretty sure it's not going to leak. We will have to see though. I'm going to let it dry for 24 hours and then fill up the block, and then once I can get water coming out of these holes, I'll know that that freeze plug has water completely behind it, and then we'll see if it leaks. And then from there we can put it all back together and see if it leaks under pressure. But it should be good. Much better than the old one. With the freeze plug drying, I'll show you all the nifty car parts that I got in the mail. So I got some gaskets for the water pump, I got some transmission fluid, I got a gasket for the thermostat housing, an oil filter to change the oil, a new thermostat, and also a set of spark plugs. As for the distributor, I have in my parts stash a distributor coil and cap and rotor that are in really good shape, and I'm going to go and use those to replace the other crap that's in here. But yeah, good stuff from Advanced Auto. We'll change the oil now and go from there. With the freeze plug fixed, it's time to put everything back together. Basically opposite the way it came out. One thing I will show you is that this car had this, I think it's a Mr. Gasket chrome thermostat housing, but the thing is it comes with this ring gasket to seal all the water in, and you know what? This is crap. The reason why is because it's really, really hard and brittle. You can see that it just broke. Anyway, so that's garbage. What I'm going to do is I have my own thermostat gasket right there, and I just put RTV on both sides of that gasket and fill this ridge inside here with RTV, and you know what? It seals pretty well like that. It's cheaper anyway, so instead of having to buy a new rubber seal that's going to leak anyway, I'll do this and be good. But I'm going to throw everything back together. It still needs to sit for a few more hours before I can add water to it, but it's dry for the most part, but I'm still going to wait. It's funny, you look at this, the guy who put the intake on used these stupid rubber gaskets on the China wall. Not what I would have done, but it is what it is. So back together it goes, and we'll button everything up. It's a few hours later, and I finally got the cooling system all buttoned up. So there's a new thermostat underneath this, obviously a new gasket so that doesn't leak. This is actually the old steel braided hose. The rubber underneath was in really nice shape. The only thing I did was I trimmed about an inch off of it. It was a little bit long, so it fits a little bit better now. The water pump is back on with new gaskets. I also put a new lower hose on it, so that's a brand new hose. The other one had a rusty spring inside of it. This one, being new, it's going to last a lot longer than the other one. The other one also was prone to collapsing. It looked really soft. Now, one thing that no one will probably ever notice unless they watch this video is that I rerouted the heater hoses. Now, if you'll notice, there's one hose here and one hose here, and they both have 5/8 fittings on them. And for some reason, the guy, whenever he replaced the heater hoses, he decided he wanted this one to be 3/4. So this one was 3/4, and it didn't fit on either end. So it goes to the heater core, and it didn't fit. It was obviously too big for the fitting, and then it was also too big for up here. So I have a new, it's not a new 5/8 hose, but it's a good enough 5/8 hose that will work. And I got the heater hoses. I cut probably about a foot out of each of them, and then routed them down here all nice and away from the exhaust and zip tied in place so they look really good. The main complaint I had is that previously you could see the heater hoses hanging down lower than the exhaust. I mean, it was just awful, but I have them all tucked away really nicely like they're supposed to be. So in my opinion, as long as you don't have any leaks, the cooling system is done with the new freeze plug and new gaskets and new hoses and all that kind of stuff. I love these radiator fans, so I'm not really worried about it overheating. And that's it for coolant and for cooling. I'm gonna wait. I gotta wait a little bit longer for the. I'm sure the RTV is dry already, but I just like to wait a little longer than that to fill it with water. I'm going to purchase a new radiator cap for it just because there's the old thermostat and the old cap. Next, I believe I will tackle this awful coil and distributor cap and get those swapped out because they're ugly. It's tan. With the cap off, you can see, I mean, it's not too bad, but it's definitely got some miles on it. I'm kind of worried about all this dirt that's been slinging around the bottom of it. If you take a look at the rotor, I think I have a better one. Here's the one I want to put on it. This one has very few miles on it. I don't remember where I got it from, but it's a good rotor. So I'll put this one on it just because it's a little less worn. And then, believe it or not, I think I'm going to use the button out of the tan cap and put it in this one. Here's the ignition coil and all that kind of fun stuff that I'm going to put on it. I'm going to clean it up a little bit because it's kind of gross, but it will work. In the end, I had to go with the black cap because the red one I had the wrong mounting points. It was a newer style. There goes the radiator cap. Anyway, so yep, there it is. To me, I like it because it's a lot less obvious and gaudy and kind of crappy. It's just there like it's supposed to be. And other than that, the only other thing in the ignition system that we have to do is the spark plugs. And I'm thinking it should be pretty simple, just one at a time. After that, we'll fill it up with coolant, we'll fire it up, check the timing, and go from there. So we're almost done in the engine bay. I just have a little bit more of wire looms to go, and then a lot of cleaning.